Hello, I'm Jonathan M0JSX, and when I'm playing around with DMR or Fusion or D-Star, most of the time I'm using this, which is my hotspot, which I leave here at home, here in the shack, switched on pretty much all the time, and this does my digital hotspotting for me, which is great. But it's a bit too nice to really take out and throw in a bag and take with me. Now, I don't have any doubts that it would survive, but I kind of want to leave it here in the shack. So ages ago, I purchased one of these, which is one of these sort of really cheap MMDVM hotspot devices, which you can find on the likes of AliExpress or Amazon or eBay. And what I did with this one, to build this one, is when I ordered the MMDVM board and the case, I also ordered a Raspberry Pi 02W, which I then put into the hotspot to improve that performance. So in here is a Pi 02W. And the old Pi 0W that was in there, I put into here. And that's been fine, and this has kind of worked. However, it's got to the point where the latest version of WPSD, which is kind of an evolution of Pi-Star, no longer really supports the original Pi 0. So I went online and I have just purchased a brand new 02W with the installed header, which is nice because when I bought the 02, which is in here, I had to install the header myself. So what we're going to do today is completely strip this apart. We're going to install the 02W, reinstall it, reinstall the operating system and get it configured back up so I can use it on DMR, specifically the Brandmeister network, Fusion, or the YSF stuff that these hotspots will access, and also D-Star as well. Let's start by taking it apart. Okay, this might be a bit sort of showing how the sausage is made by having a camera in shot, but never mind. Let's start by opening up this Raspberry Pi. Now, I ordered this Pi from the Pi Hut, who I've used previously for a few Raspberry Pi bits and pieces. I don't have any affiliation with them. I paid the full price on their website. They certainly don't know that this is what I'm doing, but that's where I bought that one from. There we are, Pi 02W with headers. That's the important thing. We want the GPIO header, so we don't have to do it ourselves. Let's get this open. It's always exciting having a new Raspberry Pi. Always forget how small they are as well. Lovely, so that is our 02W. Now we're going to take apart our MMDVM hotspot. So first we're going to do is take off the antenna. Now these metal cases, they are sort of push fit together. So I'm just going to sort of pull it apart and it will come apart into its two separate bits. And I can see that when I installed this, I possibly didn't use all the screws, but let's get my screwdriver set in. We want a sort of Phillips head. That one looks like the right one. And let's start undoing some screws. Okay, so two long screws and the spacer. The other spacer is going to fall out as well. Yes, it did. There we are. Right, two long screws, two spacers. And let's pull very gently. I'm just going to pull the top MMDVM board away from the old Raspberry Pi. At this point, I'm also going to remove the SD card. We will reuse that. And now I'm just going to take out the old board. Okay. See the evolution of Raspberry Pi boards. The 0W versus the 02W. Okay, so now let's get this one installed. So, two short screws were GPIO size. So that's the Pi 02W installed in the case. At this point we can now put our MMDVM board back on, and the way that this works is we're simply popping the various pins in and then just sort of pushing down, making sure not to push on the screen, otherwise we'll crack the screen and then everybody's having a bad day. We're just going to push that down all the way. Lovely. In theory that's done, but obviously we're going to install the screws. Lovely. And now it's just popping the case back together. And done. And I could pop the antenna back on as well, I suppose. But in terms of hardware, that's all that is to it. Now what we'll do is hop over to our computer and get the WPSD image reinstalled onto this SD card. So what I'm doing now is installing the micro SD card from the Raspberry Pi into a micro SD adapter, and I'm just going to plug that into the laptop. And now I'm on the w0chp.radio website, and here's the WPSD project. So we want to download WPSD. So I am using a generic hotspot. If I was doing this for my ZOMspot, for instance, I would scroll down and I'd find the one for my ZOMspot. All that does really is just within the image, it is pre-configuring all of the various settings that we're going to need to do later. But as we don't, we're just going to click on this one. That will download. Okay, so the file has downloaded, which means we can extract it. Let's use WinRAR. That's fine, we can do that. Okay, so the file has been extracted, and here we can see it in Windows Explorer. The next thing we need to do is download a utility in order to flash that file to our SD card. Now there are a couple of options. The one that most people tend to go for is this one called Balena Etcher, which you can download from etcher.balena.io. And if you head to the download section, you've got it for various operating systems. So if you don't happen to be using Windows, if you may be on a Mac, there's a version for Mac, both if you're on Intel or Apple Silicon, or there's also versions for Linux as well. But obviously we're on Windows, so I would click that. I already have this installed. So here we are into Balena Etcher, which is a really simple thing. So we've got to do 3 clicks here. First one is to select our file. So we click Flash from File, and we're going to find our image, which is that one just there. So I'm going to click Open. The next thing is select where we're installing it to. Well, we know we're installing it to an SD card. It's found it. It's the only one. Yes, my SD card is far too large for what we're doing here. Don't happen to have a smaller one. Select, and then just click Flash, and it's going to do it. While Balena Etcher is doing its thing, what we can do is get the file ready for Wi-Fi. So the way in which this image is going to work is that in one way, if we were to just install it, as we're doing now with Balena Etcher, install it into our Raspberry Pi and turn it on, the Raspberry Pi is going to create its own Wi-Fi network, which we can then connect to and configure it that way. What's far easier though is to use the Wi-Fi configuration file generator to automatically put in our Wi-Fi details. So it's going to ask us for a couple of things, our SSID and our passphrase. Obviously, I'm not going to show you those things, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to generate the file, and then we'll download that and pop it onto, and I'll show you where to pop it onto the SD card. The next thing we can also do while we're waiting, and this only applies if we're wanting to do DMR on Brandmeister, but we need to make sure that A, we've got a Brandmeister account. We'd also need a DMR ID if you haven't already got a DMR ID. But we're going to head over to Brandmeister, and as part of their security within Brandmeister now, they've got a hotspot password, which you have to set on Brandmeister's website and then also put into the configuration when you're setting up your hotspot. So I'm going to log in with my self-care account into Brandmeister. So if you haven't already got this, you'll need to register. I'm just going to log in, and then we're going to make sure that we know what our password is. Now I know what my password is because I set it, but what we would need to do is head up here, go into self-care, and then here, so we've got hotspot security, and we can enter a new password. As I say, I know what my password is, so I'm not going to do that. But if we didn't, if we needed to set a new password, that's where we would go, and then we'll just click save password. Remember what that password is. It doesn't have to be the same password that you use to log into the brandmeister.network website. In fact, it's probably advisable that it's not the same password. But remember what that password is, because we're going to need it in a few minutes when we set up the hotspot itself. Berliner Etcher has said everything is fine. It's been successfully flashed. Now, what I believe happens is that Berliner Etcher ejects the card from the computer. So what we're going to have to do is just reach up, remove it, and then just plug it back into the computer, just so we can get that configuration for Wi-Fi into the device. So it's this one here that just says boot. So we're going to click into there, and all we need to do is that file which we downloaded for the Wi-Fi is simply just drag it across into that boot folder. There it is. Now we can head down and safely eject the device, and that is pretty much good to go. We can now remove it from the computer. I'm going to remove the micro SD card from the adapter, and I'm then going to pop the micro SD card into the Raspberry Pi, and I'll show you up here because I've removed the camera. There's the little slot. The pins need to just face down, and then it just slides in. He says it will, honestly. There we are. It doesn't click, it just slides in, and you can see it's just ever so slightly protruding the case, just so you can get a fingernail to pull it out should you need to. Now we just need to apply some power, which I can do. I just need to grab my handy dandy micro USB cable, which is hiding here, and I'm simply just going to plug the device in, just like that, and it's coming to life. There's lots of lights that are flashing, and that's going to take a few minutes to boot. So the screen on my MMDVM board is pretty much shot, but we can see it says booting up. There you go, not configured yet. I'm going to dig into my router just to see if I can find the IP address that it is assigned itself. WPSD, so it's 192.168.0.124. So if we open up a new tab, type in that IP address, and hey presto, here we go, WPSD 42 dashboard. Not quite sure what the 42 is about, but it's saying it's a new installation. So that was fairly easy. We just needed to find the IP address. So I am going to go into admin. Now, it's always going to be pi-star as the username. Password is always going to be Raspberry, unless you manually change that. It's saying there is an update available. Fine, sure, let's run that update. Let's just get that out of the way and get that done. Bit of patience and a few reloads. It has done its updates. Good. So I am going to head into the admin side, and I can then head into configuration. And now we can tell it some things. So no call sign. So obviously you're going to type in your call sign. I'm going to type in my call sign. DMR CCS7ID. Again, you're going to type in your ID that you've got from radioid.net. I'm going to type in mine. If I can remember what it is. What is my ID? 2341296. There we are. I don't have an NXDN ID, but I'm also not going to be using an NXDN radio. Radio frequency. Now this in here is the suggested node frequency, 438.800. However, I already have a node on 438.800, so I am going to pop this on a different frequency of 434.3. Just because it's far enough away from my node on 438.8. The radio modem type, well, this is a standard MMDVM. Now I have to pick the right one. It's not a USB. I think it's going to be that one, but let me just check the other options. I'm pretty sure. Let's try that one, see if it works. If it doesn't, work it out. Select time zone. Well, I am in Europe. Obviously, you're going to select whichever one you're in. I'm going to select Europe, London, because that is my nearest big city. English only comes in one flavour, and it is spelled with a U. Right, let's apply those changes, and then we'll come back and sort out the actual mode specific bits. After what seemed like quite a while, it has reloaded. Now it is saying that it's recommended that you save the configuration or profile, which we can do. So I'm just going to pop in my call sign, save profile. Current settings saved to profile M0JSX, page reloading. Current running profile is that. Okay, let's head back into configuration. Lovely. So we can go down here and we can start to turn some modes on and off. Oh, it's asking me about display type, which it does have. It is a type 3. Yep, let's enable that. A reboot later, and the screen is doing something. It says WPSD starting. So that's exciting. Hey, and it's actually got some details. I say my screen here is pretty ragged. But I can see an IP address. I can also see that it reckons it's about 60 degrees. Now we are going to turn on the modes that I want to turn on. So I want to turn on D-Star, I want to turn on YSF, and I want to turn on DMR. And primary DMR network, I want to be set as Brandmeister. And now we're going to hit apply changes again. I will just say at this point though, if you do want to use your hotspot on the D-Star network, you do need to be registered for D-Star using your call sign. The easiest way to do that is through ICOM UK. Head to their website, and I'll leave a link down in the description below, but where you can sign up and get registered. But that's by far the easiest way. Otherwise, you won't be able to use D-Star. Right, here we go. So, D-Star configuration, you pretty much don't need to touch any of this. Provided that you are registered on D-Star, you're good to go. If you are wanting to use reflector 01 Charlie or 030 Charlie, it is highly recommended that you do not enable any kind of auto link to those reflectors. They get very busy, and if the admins see that you are connected all the time and are not generating any activity, they might ban you. So I would just leave it as none, leave it as no default reflector, and just connect when you want to use that. Same with System Fusion. It does automatically put an America link as the default. Again, I'm just going to change that to none because I don't want it to automatically connect to Fusion. If I want it connected to Fusion, I will do that manually using the radio. For Brandmeister, so here we go. First off, I'm going to change my Brandmeister master server to the one that is in the United Kingdom, so BM2341. Again, you change that to whichever your nearest one is. If you're in the US, leave it on the default US master server. If you're not anywhere else in the world, put it on your local one. Hotspot security, that's that password which we set up over here on Brandmeister Self-Care. So I'm going to type in my hotspot password. And the Brandmeister network ESSID, which is the extended ID. So you can see it's already populated my DMR ID, and then we've got to give it a letter afterwards. We could leave it on none. Not going to do that. I've already got my hotspot set for 01, so this is going to be 02. And Brandmeister network enabled. Well, yeah, I want to enable that because I want it to work on the Brandmeister network. We could set up other networks if we want to. There's DMR Plus, FreeDMR, HB Link network. We could set up a custom DMR network if we wanted to. System X, TGIF. The list goes on. And then right down at the bottom, there's a section here for general DMR ID settings. Just leave these as they are. Just don't touch them. But you can, if you want to, change the color code. Appears to be a missing U in the word color there. Just leave them as they are. Right down here at the bottom, we again don't need to worry about any of this. Node access control is only if you are setting this up for public. So if you want to enable other users to use your hotspot, you would need to set this up. The way that's done here is you need to manually put in a DMR ID into the access list and then set on semi-public. If you are using this as a repeater, there's a different set of instructions which we're not going to get into today. Leave all the firewire stuff. Right down here at the bottom is how we can add a connection if we wanted to. So if we wanted to maybe set this up to talk to our mobile phone as well, that's what we can do here. So we can scan and add available networks, or we can add a connection manually. I will do that to connect to my phone's hotspot later, but I'm not going to do it now. And here is the auto access point SSID stuff. Again, we need to worry about any of this down here. We are just going to hit apply changes and let it reboot again. The last thing I'm going to set up when it reboots is the Brandmeister manager within WPSD. What we need to do is we need to head over to the Brandmeister website again. We need to click on our profile and go into profile settings. It's logged me out. Let's log back in. Lovely, right. So head into profile settings. And then we need to go into API keys just here. And I can see I've already got a few, but I'm just going to add a new one. I'm going to call this one MMDVM. And I'm going to click OK. And you need to copy the contents of this box. Or do something with the QR code. I'm not quite sure what that QR code does. I'm going to blur it. But yeah, we need the contents of this box here, which when this reloads, which it's doing, happy days. If we head back down to the Brandmeister section here, so I need to go Brandmeister API key, we're going to paste in that API key and click apply changes. And what this means is that we'll be able to control what talk groups the hotspot is connected to using this admin portal here. So if we click into admin now, we can see we've got a few options here. So we've got D-Star Manager, we've got YSF Manager, DMR Network Manager. Let's click on Brandmeister Manager. This will load that. It will work because we've just put in the API key. If it hadn't put in the API key, nothing would be connected here. We can also check here on the Brandmeister website. If we head down to My Devices, oh, it's not yet showing up. Let's just try again. There it is, 234.129.6.0.2. So we could put a description in. Obviously, everything is left as default at the moment. But from here, you can also assign some talk groups. But let's just do it here. Let's add a static talk group of 91. We're going to add that static talk group. And then what will happen is we should start getting some activity come through on Brandmeister's talk group 91, which is the worldwide talk group on Brandmeister. So talk group 91 on time slot 2 added. Brandmeister API success. page reloading, and if we head back to the main dashboard, we can see we are connected to the DMR master. We're not connected to anything on D-Star. We're not connected on YSF. And there we go. We are starting to transmit
UL 5x9, 5x9.
DMR. And we can now happily have a QSO on any Brandmeister talk group, not just 91, but that's just, I knew that 91 there was going to be some activity on, hence why I just chose it for the purposes of this video. But have a look through the Brandmeister list and see some talk groups which you might like. As I say, this doesn't have to necessarily be for Brandmeister. There are different DMR networks if you choose. You could connect it to the DV Scotland or Phoenix network if you wished to. I don't personally, because I've got a Phoenix repeater not too far away from me, so if I wanted to access that network, I've got that as my option. But there we go. In 2025, the hotspot does still work. The hotspot is still relevant, and let's be honest, this is not replacing our beloved HF radios by any stretch of the imagination. This is just enabling communication worldwide using a really simple handheld radio like this Retevis H1. I hope you found this of use. I hope you found this interesting. It's taken me about an hour. I'm just watching the timestamp on the recording here. It's coming up to the hour. So that's from opening everything up, from starting the video to having it working is an hour. If you've liked this video, there's a button specifically for that. If you haven't, there's another one that seems to work just fine too. And if you haven't already done so, please do click on that subscribe button. It really does help me out, and you'll also be told whenever I upload a new video. There's another video coming up over here that the algorithm thinks that you'll like next. Until next time, 73. Bye-bye.